G'day everybody, it's Dave from Dai Kwun here. This is the second part of my two videos about the wisdom from Bruce Lee that he passed on this book, the Tao of Gung Fu, which wasn't published in his lifetime, but he'd written the notes in the 60s apparently. And John Little, who, with the permission of the Lee Foundation and Linda Lee, gathered so much of his notes together and published a whole series of very, very interesting books about Bruce's thinking. They published this one, the Tao of Gung Fu, A Study in the Way of Chinese Martial Art. This is my favourite book because it was written by Bruce when he was just in America, just back from, just from Hong Kong. So he's very much a Wing Chun guy, and very much saying things that he was taught by his Master Yip Man. Now, I don't have any doubt that he was taught by Wing Chun Lung, and probably by Mai Sigong, Chu Shong Tin, and probably by a few other guys, but Bruce never made any bones about it. Yip Man was his Sifu, and he told a lot of stories about personally training with him. And coming from a wealthy family, I'd say he probably did get a lot of private lessons. And just by the way, my Sifu, Jim Fung, who knew Bruce Lee and who started training with Chu Shong Tin back in 1960 and would have known Yip Man, he always said to me, don't put up with people dissing Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a terrific martial artist and a good Wing Chun practitioner, and he rated Bruce quite highly. So anyway, moving on from my last video, which was about Chi Sau, this is also about Chi Sau, and I'd just like to read to you this incredible section. I think it's extremely relevant to us now as Wing Chun practitioners. So the chapter's headed, "Do not localize your attention." And he writes, "Not to localize or partialize the mind is the end of spiritual training. When it is nowhere, it is everywhere. When it, the mind, occupies 1/10, it is absent from the other 9/10. Let the Kung Fu man discipline himself to have the mind go on its own way, instead of trying deliberately to confine it somewhere. Therefore, during Chi Sau, you should have nothing purposely designed, nothing consciously calculated, no anticipation, no expectation. In short, you should be standing there like a dead man. To be conscious is characteristic of the human mind, as distinguished from the mind of the lower animals. But when the mind becomes conscious of its doings, it ceases to be instinctual, and its commands are coloured with calculations and deliberations, which means that the connection between itself and the limbs is no longer direct, because the identity of the commander and his executive agent is lost. When dualism, he has in brackets yin against yang, takes place, the whole personality never comes out as it is in itself. The empty-mindedness of Chi Sau applies to all activities we may perform, such as dancing. Okay, so Bruce was, anybody who knows the story of Bruce knows that he was a really good cha-cha dancer. I think him and his little brother were the Hong Kong champions at some stage. So Bruce looked at that art and compared it to the art of Wing Chun. And he says, if the dancer has any idea at all of displaying his art well, he ceases to be a good dancer, for his mind stops with every movement he goes through. In all things, it is important to forget your mind and become one with the work at hand. When the mind is tied up, it feels inhibited in every move it makes, and nothing will be accomplished with any sense of spontaneity. The wheel revolves when it is not too tightly attached to the axle. When it is too tight, it will never move on. As the Zen saying goes, into a soul absolutely free from thoughts and emotions, Even the tiger finds no room to insert its fierce claws. In Chi Sau, the mind is devoid of all fear, inferiority complexes, vicious feeling. Now that could be viscous. So it's either vicious or viscous feeling, etc. And it is free from all forms of attachment, and it is master of itself. It knows no hindrances, no inhibitions, no stoppages, no clogging, no stickiness. It then follows its own course like water. It is like the wind that blows where it lists, which means blows where it wants to. Okay, so that's sort of profound and heavy, but essentially what Bruce is saying here is that the Gung Fu man, us, man or woman, we don't want to be using the conscious mind that deliberates, that thinks, that plans out. We want to let go of that. We don't want to keep our mind in any part of our body either. We can become obsessed with keeping our mind in our spine, or keeping our mind in our legs, or in our hands, or in some part. But what he's saying is, you've got two minds. You've got one mind that thinks about everything, which is the human mind, and you've got that mind we get from the other lower animals. You know, whether they're lower or not is another question, but it's an instinctive mind, and we sort of don't trust it. As trained humans, we don't trust our instinctive mind, because the human world doesn't really rely on it that much. But anyone who's an artist or a musician or an athlete or a Kung Fu practitioner knows that there is another mind. You know, you might call it the subconscious mind, but it's sort of the mind of the body. It brings out beautiful things, amazing things when you let it go. When you sort of second guess yourself, think too much, worry about what you're doing, then that's usually when you stuff up. And I've talked about this in other videos about getting out of that mind. But I just want to finish with one important point, a point I think is very important. When you're practicing your Chi Sau, now I'm a bit of a talker, and I'm often guilty of this, but I really think we should try not to talk when we're practicing Chi Sau. When we practice the forms, we don't usually gab along, you know, talking about the weather and whatever as we're doing it, do we? We know that we should still the mind, or, you know, quieten the mind, focus the mind, whatever you want to think of it as. So in Chi Sau, we should be in exactly the same state. And I think it doesn't matter if there's distracting stuff going on around. The main thing is that you can get yourself into that sort of zoned out mind where you're not consciously talking to somebody, thinking about those sort of things. You're just letting your body do the movements, and you're feeling it, but in a really natural way, and you stay completely relaxed. And I think this is a really big thing. This is what stops us from improving a lot, is just too much consciousness going on when we're practicing Chi Sau. We need to really, you know, you might feel it's a bit rude to the other person not to talk to them, how you going, that sort of stuff, but I think it's a good idea to, you know, get that done with at the start. How you going? Let's do some Chi Sau, but then get serious and just totally relax and roll and feel what they're doing. But see if you can get yourself into a mind state where you're not really talking in yourself or talking to the other person. And in that way, hopefully, you will feel that thing that flows like water. And it'll be just like the wind that blows where it lists. And one of my favourite sayings, the Zen saying that Bruce mentions, which anybody who knows the Tao of Jeet Kune Do knows that this is, he just included this in a poem. It's sort of unattributed at the front of his posthumously printed book, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And I bought mine in 1975 or 76. And this was all marvellous, weird Zen to me. I couldn't understand what it was about. But I've always remembered this line: into a soul absolutely free from thoughts and emotion, even the tiger finds no room to insert its fierce claws. Right? Into a soul absolutely free from thoughts and emotions, even the tiger finds no room to insert its fierce claws. So there's a mystery in there, a Zen mystery, a Kung Fu mystery, a Wing Chun mystery. All right, well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you as always. Look forward to more videos. Please subscribe. I've been a bit slow in producing videos, but I'm going to, this has been a bit of a talkative one, but I'm going to try to make a lot more regular short videos about practical things in Wing Chun, practical applications, as well as my beloved philosophy and chasing Wing Chun mind force, etc. Okay, thanks. See you later.